Turkish Airlines presents Business Africa.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of Business Africa. I'm Yasmina El-Basire. Here are the headlines. Africa is now sending more money to China than it's receiving. Between declining loans and rising trade, Sino-African cooperation is shifting its focus towards the real economy. In Libya, the liquidity crisis is paralyzing the economy. Limited cash withdrawals, a shortage of banknotes and failing electronic payments are making daily life difficult for citizens. Abidjan is positioning itself as a regional hub for creativity. Its cultural and creative industries are generating jobs and boosting Côte d'Ivoire's attractiveness. According to Boston University, Africa is sending more money to China than it receives, reflecting a sharp decline in Chinese loans and an increase in trade flows. This shift marks the end of an era of massive financing and the beginning of a cooperation focused on the real economy and local development.
Economic relations between China and Africa are changing. A recent report shows that the African continent now sends more money to China than it receives, a shift linked to a sharp decline in Chinese financing and the rise in trade flows. For more than a decade, China was a major financial partner for Africa. According to Boston University's database, Chinese lending to the continent exceeded $10 billion a year between 2012 and 2018, peaking at $28.8 billion in 2016. From 2019 onwards, the trend reversed. Lending fell by more than 60% to $6.8 billion, then averaged just over $2 billion a year from 2020. At the same time, financial flows between Africa and China have been reshaped. Debt repayments, African imports and profits repatriated to China now exceed new incoming financing. This shift reflects a change in strategy by Chinese lenders, who have become more cautious, as well as financing constraints on the African side linked to debt restructurings and post-pandemic economic shocks. But it also marks a phase of consolidation. Several African countries are reducing their reliance on external borrowing, renegotiating agreements and prioritizing more targeted projects. Overall, the data point to a Sino-African relationship that is less focused on loan volumes and more on economic exchange.
We welcome Professor Yoro Diallo, Senior Researcher and Director of the Francophone Studies Center at Zhejiang University in China. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Recent reports show that Africa is sending more money to China than it receives. Do these flows, partly linked to debt repayment, hinder the continent's development?
If taking on debt allows me to keep my head above water, I will not hesitate to encourage it. In reality, when I speak about this shift, it is not only about China. These financial flows are, in fact, greater towards Western countries. Many media outlets, particularly in the West, focus on African debt to China, as though it were a bottomless pit blocking the continent's economic, social, and cultural development. Yet, in its economic engagement, China does not impose its views, its system, or its particular model. The decision lies with African countries themselves, their political choices and social choices.
But given these reversed flows, are African countries still making the right choice for their economies by cooperating with China?
After 300 years of colonization and domination, Africa was left in such a state that we were still searching for our own direction. In the 25 years since establishment of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, the face of Africa has changed, so have its capitals. Since Xi Jinping came to power, this cooperation has taken on a new dimension. The results over these 25 years are visible. China has built and helped Africa complete hundreds of thousands of kilometers of roads and highways. as well as ports and airports. Today, China is the leading country in terms of the number of scholarships and training and study opportunities it offers to the African continent. Its contribution to Africa's industrialization represents concrete progress and practical initiatives that enable African countries to embark on their development. Without China-Africa cooperation, many African capitals will still be a little more than large villages.
Finally, in your opinion, how can Sino-African economic relations become more balanced and more beneficial for Africa's economy?
I believe we should not fixate on this imbalance, but instead turn it into a lever for Africa's development. As long as the current imbalance works in favor of Africa countries, because Africa needs capital, we should continue to support China-Africa cooperation. The aim is that, on cultural, economic and social levels, this partnership, which has already proven itself and produced concrete, undeniable results, continues and allows African countries to move further along the path of modernization. China has granted duty-free access to goods from around 40 African countries. The Chinese market is open to many African products. Malian agricultural exports sold in China, as well as products from Kenya and Tanzania, and coffee from Cameroon. These are concrete measures that are, as the saying goes, small streams destined to form great rivers. And it is towards these great rivers that China-Africa cooperation is flowing in pursuit of shared development.
Monsieur Diallo, thank you for joining us.
Le plaisir est pour moi.
In Libya, the liquidity crisis has plunged the country into financial paralysis. Cash withdrawals are limited, banknotes are scarce, and electronic payment systems meant to ease the shortage are also experiencing frequent failures.
At a commercial bank in Tripoli, Ahmed Akoub did not come to withdraw cash. There's none available. But to file a complaint after an electronic payment was debited without being completed.
I noticed that many shops, when you try to pay by card, claim that the terminal is out of order. I don't know whether it actually works or not, but everyone is complaining about this situation.
Since the Central Bank of Libya withdrew 47 billion dinars, the country has been facing a severe cash shortage, pushing citizens toward electronic payments. High-denomination banknotes are scarce, and authorities are warning of an increase in counterfeit bills.
With electronic payments, there is no counterfeit money. Everything is digital, secured by a code linked to the exact name, verified data, and the appropriate application.
On the ground, malfunctions in electronic payment systems are disrupting commercial activity.
Citizens face different exchange rates depending on the payment method. Cash withdrawals are often subject to unfavorable rates, while card payments usually incur additional fees. This situation, driven by the liquidity crisis and limited access to cash, particularly for fuel and essential goods, worsens daily hardships and makes access to basic necessities more difficult.
Caught between a cash shortage and failing systems, many Libyans still struggle to access their own money.
In Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, cultural and creative industries are becoming a key driver of the economy. Music, cinema, fashion and visual arts are creating jobs, attracting investment and strengthening the city and the country's cultural influence.
From music and cinema to fashion and visual arts, cultural and creative industries are emerging as key growth drivers in Abidjan's economy. In Côte d'Ivoire's largest city, culture is no longer confined to the arts. It is increasingly recognized as a strategic sector for jobs, investment and economic sovereignty. For us, sovereignty is this ability to project ourselves, to redefine the collective imagination about Africa with our own words, our own images. Backed by a young, creative population and a new generation of committed entrepreneurs, these industries are helping to build a more assertive African soft power, with Abidjan positioning itself as a regional hub. We have all wanted to visit American or European cities because they have been fantasized in series or films. It is time for us, young Africans and creators, to follow the same path in order to sell ourselves. Within this broad ecosystem, the music industry is standing out as a sector with strong economic potential in its own right. Today, music generates 50 million jobs for young people aged 15 to 29 and attracts young people all over the world. According to UNESCO, creative industries could account for up to 10% of Côte d'Ivoire's GDP by 2030. In Abidjan, they are becoming an increasingly important engine of growth and competitiveness, both for the city and for the country as a whole.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Business Africa. Thank you for watching. For more information, stay tuned to Africa News or visit our website, africanews.com.
Business Africa was presented by Turkish Airlines.